let's head across the country for the massive star-studded Hollywood premiere of Michael. You see it, you can do it.
In April of 2026, a movie about Michael Jackson opened in theaters, and it broke box office records within 3 days. By July, it had crossed $1 billion worldwide, the first biopic in history to do it. Audiences gave it a rare A-. Fans posted his songs on TikTok by the millions.
I wanted to dive into that even more. Of course, I wanted to pay attention to the little details and nuances of the performances, but most important was his essence in his heart of how he treated people, how he was with everyone, and that was the most incredible experience I could ask for, to be able to go through that.
For a few weeks, it felt like the world had fallen in love with Michael Jackson all over again. But behind the scenes, something else was happening. A scene that was supposed to be in that movie never made it to the screen. Not because of budget, not because of time, because of a legal agreement signed years earlier, one that forbade a certain person from ever being shown on camera. And just weeks after the biopic became a cultural phenomenon, a very different project, a Netflix documentary about Michael Jackson's criminal trial, was reportedly 1 week away from being pulled entirely. Executives got nervous. Sources say there was no advertising, no press screenings, almost no warning it existed at all.
People are completely done with Netflix and are canceling their subscriptions after they just announced they're releasing a new documentary on Michael Jackson soon.
2 projects, same man, same summer. Wildly different treatment. So what's really going on with the story of Michael Jackson, and who gets to decide which version the world sees? Over the next few minutes, we're going to walk through how Michael Jackson's estate has spent nearly 2 decades controlling his public image, sometimes successfully, sometimes not. We'll look at the lawsuits filed against television networks, the documentary pulled from a major streaming service, the scene cut from a billion-dollar movie, and the 2 men who are still, right now, fighting their way toward a courtroom, a fight that started over a decade ago and still hasn't ended. This isn't a story about proving guilt or innocence. Courts have already ruled on some of that, and other parts are still being decided. This is a story about something else entirely. What happens when an estate worth hundreds of millions of dollars decides it will control the narrative, no matter which studio, network, or streaming giant stands in the way? To understand where we are now, we have to go back to the 1990s. Michael Jackson faced child sexual abuse allegations more than once during his life. In the early 1990s, one case ended in a settlement with an accuser's family. In 2003, he was charged again, and in 2005, after a lengthy and heavily televised trial, a jury acquitted him on all counts.
I talked to my lawyers, and I said, "Can you guarantee me that justice will prevail?" And they said, "Michael, we cannot guarantee you that a judge or a jury will do anything." And with that, I was like catatonic. I was outraged.
How much money was
Totally
it?
outraged. So what I said, I have got to do something to get out from under this nightmare. All these lies and all these people coming forward to get paid and these tabloid shows, just lies, 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 lies.
Jackson always denied the allegations. He died in 2009 at the age of 50, leaving behind not just his music, but one of the most valuable and most tightly controlled estates in entertainment history. That's when the second chapter of the story really begins, because after his death, the fight wasn't just about Michael Jackson the person anymore. It became about Michael Jackson the brand. In 2013 and 2014, 2 men, Wade Robson and James Safechuck, filed civil lawsuits, not against Michael Jackson himself, but against his companies, MJJ Productions and MJJ Ventures. Their claim wasn't just that they were abused as children, it was that these companies knew and did nothing to stop it. Those lawsuits were thrown out in 2017 on a technicality, the statute of limitations. But in 2020, California changed its law, giving survivors of childhood sexual abuse more time to come forward. And in 2023, an appeals court revived both cases.
The Jackson family points out to us that your story's changed after Michael's death, is what they're saying. They also believe that if he were still alive, you all would not be sitting here talking to us right now. What do you say to that?
I mean, it's hard to speculate as to what would be the situation if Michael was still alive.
Meanwhile, in 2019, HBO aired a documentary built around Robson and Safechuck's accounts called Leaving Neverland. It was one of the most talked about documentaries of the decade. The estate didn't stay quiet. They sued HBO. And years later, in 2024, Leaving Neverland quietly disappeared from HBO Max, reportedly because of a decades-old agreement between HBO and the estate that barred the network from disparaging Jackson. This wasn't the estate's first fight with a network either. Back in 2018, they sued ABC over a different documentary, The Last Days of Michael Jackson. So by the time we get to 2026, there's already a well-worn pattern. Any project the estate doesn't control tends to run into legal trouble. Any project the estate does control tends to get made exactly the way they want it. Which brings us to 2026 and the two projects that collided this year. The first was Michael, the authorized biopic, years in the making, directed by Antoine Fuqua and starring someone with a very personal connection to the role, Jackson's own nephew, Jafar Jackson, in his acting debut. This was always going to be a big swing. Early trailers broke viewing records. Projections had the film making somewhere between $50 and $90 million in its opening weekend. Instead, it opened at $97 million domestically, blowing past even the most optimistic guesses. But here's where it gets interesting. Reports before the release revealed that the film's third act had to be completely reworked. The original plan was to dramatize a real person connected to one of the abuse allegations. The problem? That individual had a prior legal settlement with the estate, one that specifically prohibited them from ever being portrayed on screen. So the filmmakers restructured the entire ending. Instead of covering Jackson's full life, Michael now stops around 1979, right as he's stepping out from his family group into solo stardom. The most difficult chapters of his story simply aren't there. Critics noticed immediately. Review after review pointed out that the film paints an incomplete picture. Remarkable filmmaking, incredible music, but a version of Michael Jackson frozen at his most triumphant, before any of the darkest allegations ever entered the picture. Audiences didn't seem to mind. The film kept climbing. By July, it had done something no biopic in history had ever done, crossed $1 billion worldwide. Now here's the second project, running almost in parallel. Netflix had been developing a 3-part docuseries called Michael Jackson: The Verdict, not about the abuse allegations directly, but about the 2005 criminal trial itself, the circus around it, the verdict, what it meant. According to reporting from Variety, just about a week before release, Netflix executives got cold feet. Sources say there was serious internal discussion about scrapping the project entirely, not over the facts in it, but over fear of exactly what had happened to HBO, a lawsuit, a legal fight with an estate known for its financial muscle and its willingness to use it.
We know our brother. Michael wouldn't do anything like that. And then he waits until after the passing of Michael, 10 years later, to come out and state this. And they're still in court with the estate, suing them for hundreds of millions of dollars.
Michael's not here to defend himself.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, Netflix didn't cancel it, but according to those same sources, the release was handled like a covert operation. No advance marketing, no press screenings. The project wasn't even confirmed to exist until about 2 weeks before it aired. People involved in production were reportedly told not to talk about it publicly at all. Netflix has pushed back on this account, saying the characterization that outside pressure changed their plans is inaccurate, and pointing out that the series launched as scheduled and spent 3 weeks in their top 10. But look at what happened either way. One Jackson project, the one made with the estate's cooperation, became the biggest music biopic in all time. The other, made without it, reportedly had to sneak into the world almost silently. And this is where the story really turns. Because while all of this was happening in theaters and on streaming platforms, a much quieter fight was grinding forward in a California courtroom. Wade Robeson and James Safechuck's case against Jackson's companies has now been alive in one form or another for more than 10 years. Thrown out, revived, delayed again and again. At different points, court filings have pointed to a trial happening in August of 2026. Other reporting says November 23, 2026, and at least one report has the date pushed all the way out to February of 2028. Whichever date turns out to be real, one thing is clear. After everything, after leaving Neverland, after the lawsuits, after the delays, Robeson and Safechuck may finally get the one thing they've been asking for since 2013, a jury. Not a documentary, not a docuseries, an actual trial where both sides will have to present evidence, and a jury, not a studio, not a streaming executive, will decide what to believe. That's the turning point, because for nearly 2 decades, this story has mostly played out in the court of public opinion, shaped by biopics, documentaries, and settlements behind closed doors. This trial, whenever it actually happens, is the first time the actual facts will be tested in the one place where narrative control doesn't matter, a courtroom, under oath. The stakes here are almost impossible to overstate. Robeson and Safechuck are reportedly seeking around $400 million combined. That's not a settlement number pulled out of the air. It reflects just how much financial exposure the Jackson companies could be facing if a jury sides with the plaintiffs. And remember, this isn't a criminal case. Jackson can't be tried again. He was acquitted in 2005, and he's been dead since 2009. This is a civil case against the companies that, according to Robeson and Safechuck, had a duty to protect them and failed. The estate has been unequivocal in its denials. There's no ambiguity there. They reject the allegations completely and are fighting the case on every front, including access to old case files and evidence. Meanwhile, the cultural machine keeps running. Lionsgate is reportedly already developing a second Jackson film to cover the rest of his life and career, the very chapters the first movie left out. Whether that sequel touches the allegations at all remains to be seen. And Leaving Neverland itself didn't stay silent either. In 2025, a follow-up documentary, Leaving Neverland 2: Surviving Michael Jackson, aired, following Robeson and Safechuck's own words as they described bracing themselves for the trial ahead. One of them said, in essence, that he doesn't see how he loses once he finally gets his day in court. So you have a movie earning $1 billion while skipping the hardest parts of the story, a documentary that nearly got buried, and 2 men who've spent over a decade just trying to get a jury to hear them out, all happening in the same year. So where does this actually stand today? Confirmed, Jackson was acquitted in 2005. Confirmed, HBO pulled Leaving Neverland from its platform in 2024. Confirmed, the estate has sued networks before and won some form of leverage each time. Confirmed, Michael is now the highest-grossing music biopic ever made, and its final act was reshaped due to a prior legal settlement. Still unresolved whether Robeson and Safechuck's allegations will be found credible by a jury whenever that trial finally happens. Still unresolved exactly why Netflix's internal deliberations played out the way sources describe. Netflix disputes that account. Still unresolved whether a future Jackson film will ever address the allegations at all. What's not in dispute is the pattern. Whether by lawsuit, by settlement, or simply by the threat of one, the Jackson estate has shaped almost every major piece of media made about him since his death. And in 2026, that pattern played out twice in the same season, in 2 very different ways. Michael Jackson has been gone for 17 years, and yet, in 2026, his name still topped the box office charts, still drove headlines about Netflix's internal politics, and still sat at the center of a courtroom battle that's outlasted most marriages. That's the strange thing about legacies this big. The person is gone, but the fight over what he means and who gets to tell his story never really ends. Somewhere in California, a trial that's been delayed for over a decade may finally happen this year, or it may slip again. And whenever it does happen, it will be the first time in this entire saga that the story isn't shaped by an estate, a studio, or a streaming service. It'll be shaped by 12 people in a jury box, hearing the whole story, the parts that made it into a billion-dollar movie and the parts that didn't. But what do you think about this? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends so you do not miss any future updates. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.